What happens when Hollywood's most beloved Latina superstar goes head-to-head with late-night television's most controversial host? You won't believe what unfolds when Jennifer Lopez sits down for what was supposed to be a routine promotional interview, only to find herself trapped in Jimmy Kimmel's web of calculated humiliation. This isn't just another celebrity spat. This is a masterclass in how power dynamics can explode in the most public way possible, leaving careers hanging in the balance and an entire studio audience stunned into silence. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because you're not going to believe what unfolds when America's sweetheart finally had enough of Jimmy Kimmel's toxic behavior. The stage lights dimmed as Jennifer Lopez made her entrance onto the Jimmy Kimmel Live set, her signature confidence radiating through the studio. Dressed in a stunning cream-colored blazer that perfectly complemented her bronzed skin, she waved to the enthusiastic audience before taking her seat across from Kimmel. The crowd's energy was electric. After all, JLo was there to promote her latest business venture, a beauty line that had been making waves in the industry. "Jennifer Lopez, everybody," Kimmel announced with his trademark grin, though those who knew him well could detect something different in his demeanor tonight. "Thank you for being here, Jenny from the block." Lopez smiled politely, though her expression flickered slightly at the casual use of her old nickname. "Thanks for having me, Jimmy. It's always interesting being here." "Interesting, huh? Well, we try to keep things lively," Kimmel chuckled, shuffling his index cards with deliberate slowness. "So, I have to ask, another beauty line? How many different ways can you package the fountain of youth? Because let's be honest, you've been selling that dream for decades now." The audience laughed, but Lopez's smile tightened. "Actually, this line focuses on inclusivity and affordable luxury. It's about making quality beauty products accessible to everyone, not just—" Right, Kimmel interrupted, waving his hand dismissively. "But come on, Jenny. Between the beauty lines, the clothing brands, the restaurants, when do you actually have time to, work on your craft? Or is the craft now just being Jennifer Lopez?" An uncomfortable silence settled over the studio. Lopez shifted in her chair, her media-trained composure beginning to show cracks. "I'm sorry, what exactly are you implying?" "Oh, nothing malicious," Kimmel said with false innocence, his voice dripping with condescension. "It's just fascinating how you've managed to turn yourself into this empire. Some might say it's brilliant business sense. Others might wonder if there's actually any substance left underneath all the branding." The audience's laughter had died down completely now, replaced by an awkward tension that seemed to fill every corner of the studio. Lopez's jaw clenched visibly as she processed what had just been said. This wasn't playful banter. This was a calculated attack on her credibility and artistry, broadcast live to millions of viewers. "Substance?" Lopez repeated slowly, her voice carrying a dangerous edge that made several audience members shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Jimmy, I've been in this industry for over 3 decades. I've sold over 80 million records worldwide, starred in dozens of films, and built businesses that employ thousands of people. What exactly qualifies as a substance in your book?" Kimmel leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying the rising tension. "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds impressive. But let's talk about some of those recent projects." But something in Lopez's eyes had changed. The professional mask was slipping, and underneath it was a woman who had endured decades of industry discrimination, casual misogyny, and constant questioning of her talent and worth. The studio lights seemed to burn brighter as the confrontation that would define both their careers was about to begin. Kimmel, emboldened by what he perceived as Lopez's vulnerability, pressed forward with his attack. "Let's talk about your recent album sales, shall we? The numbers have been, well, let's just say they're not what they used to be. Do you think maybe it's time to focus on what you do best, which apparently is selling lip gloss and dating younger men?" The audience gasped audibly. Several people in the front row exchanged shocked glances, clearly uncomfortable with the direction this interview had taken. This wasn't comedy anymore. This was character assassination disguised as entertainment. Lopez's hands gripped the arms of her chair, her knuckles turning white. "Excuse me?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of barely contained fury. "Did you just reduce my entire career to lip gloss and my personal relationships?" "Hey, I'm just asking the questions America wants answered," Kimmel shrugged, his smugness now fully on display. "I mean, when was the last time you had a #1 hit? When was the last time you were in a movie that wasn't straight to streaming? Face it, Jenny. You're more brand than artist at this point." The camera zoomed in on Lopez's face, capturing the moment when 3 decades of accumulated frustration finally reached its breaking point. Her chest rose and fell with controlled breathing as she fought to maintain her composure. But everyone in that studio could feel the earthquake building beneath the surface. "You want to talk about numbers, Jimmy?" Lopez's voice had transformed, becoming steely and dangerous. "Let's talk about how I've grossed over $3 billion in film revenue. Let's talk about my Vegas residency that sold out every single night. Let's talk about how I built a multimedia empire while men like you sat behind desks making jokes about women who actually work for their success." Kimmel's confidence wavered for just a moment, but he doubled down. "Look, I'm not trying to be mean. Here, I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. You've had a great run, but maybe it's time to gracefully step back instead of desperately clinging to relevance." The word desperately hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Lopez stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor with a sound that seemed to echo through the stunned silence of the studio. The audience collectively held its breath as America's sweetheart transformed into a force of nature right before their eyes. "Desperately clinging to relevance?" Lopez repeated, her voice rising with each word. "You want to talk about desperation, Jimmy? Let's talk about a middle-aged white man whose entire career is built on mocking successful women because he can't handle the fact that they've accomplished more than he ever will." The studio was dead silent except for the hum of cameras still rolling, capturing every second of what was quickly becoming television history. Kimmel's face had gone pale, his usual cocky demeanor replaced by the dawning realization that he had pushed too far. But Lopez wasn't finished. Not even close. The real explosion was still coming, and everyone in that room could feel it building like pressure in a volcano about to erupt. "You know what your problem is, Jimmy?" Lopez's voice cut through the silence like a blade, every word dripping with venom. "You're threatened by successful women, especially successful women of color. So you hide behind your little desk and your little jokes, tearing down people who've actually built something meaningful with their lives." Kimmel tried to regain control, his nervous laughter sounding hollow in the tense atmosphere. "Jennifer, I think you're taking this a bit too seriously. This is comedy, it's what I do." "Comedy?" Lopez interrupted, her voice rising to a level that made the microphones crackle. "There's nothing funny about spending 20 minutes on national television trying to destroy someone's reputation. There's nothing funny about using your platform to diminish women who've worked twice as hard for half the recognition." The camera operators were frantically adjusting their angles, knowing they were capturing something unprecedented. In the control room, producers were shouting conflicting instructions, some wanting to cut to commercial, others recognizing the ratings goldmine unfolding before them. "Look, if I offended you, that wasn't my intention," Kimmel said, but his words rang hollow, his usual confidence completely shattered. Sweat was beginning to form on his forehead under the hot studio lights. "Your intention?" Lopez laughed, but there was no humor in it, only years of suppressed anger finally finding its voice. "Your intention was to humiliate me in front of millions of people. Your intention was to reduce a woman who's built an empire to nothing more than a punchline for your pathetic monologue." She began pacing behind her chair now, unable to contain the energy coursing through her. The audience watched in stunned fascination as one of Hollywood's most composed stars completely dismantled her carefully constructed public persona. Do you know what it's like, Jimmy, to have every single thing you do questioned? Every business venture dismissed as a vanity project? Every relationship scrutinized and mocked? Every artistic choice treated like it's not worth serious consideration? Her voice was building to a crescendo that made everyone in the studio lean forward in their seats. Kimmel opened his mouth to respond, but Lopez wasn't having it. No, you don't get to talk anymore. You had your chance to be a professional host, and instead you chose to be a bully. You chose to use your privilege to punch down at someone who's worked her entire life to earn respect in this industry. The tension in the room was suffocating. Several audience members were filming with their phones, despite security's attempts to stop them. This wasn't just a talk show interview anymore. This was a cultural moment, a reckoning that had been building for years. I've been patient, Jimmy. I've been gracious. I've sat through countless interviews where men like you think they can minimize my accomplishments because it makes them feel better about their own mediocrity. Lopez's eyes were blazing now, and when she spoke again, her voice dropped to a dangerous whisper that somehow carried more power than her shouting had. But not tonight. Tonight, America gets to see what happens when you push a strong woman too far. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Kimmel's hands were visibly shaking now as he reached for his water glass, his mouth apparently having gone completely dry. The studio audience sat frozen, some with their hands covering their mouths in shock, others leaning forward in morbid fascination at the complete destruction of a talk show host's reputation happening in real time. "Jennifer, please, let's just take a breath here," Kimmel stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe we got off on the wrong foot. We can start over, ask you about your projects properly." "Start over?" Lopez's laugh was sharp and bitter, cutting through his pathetic attempt at damage control. "You think you can spend 20 minutes systematically trying to destroy my credibility and then just start over? You think you can call me desperate, question my talent, mock my business ventures, and then ask me to pretend it never happened?" She moved closer to his desk, her presence now completely dominating the space. Kimmel actually recoiled in his chair, shrinking back like a child caught in a lie. The power dynamic had completely reversed. The confident host was now a cowering mess, while his guest had transformed into an unstoppable force of righteous fury. "Let me tell you something about desperation, Jimmy," Lopez continued, her voice now carrying the weight of 3 decades in the entertainment industry. "Desperation is a middle-aged comedian whose ratings are tanking, so he decides to ambush a respected artist to create a viral moment. Desperation is using your platform to tear down successful women because you can't handle that they've accomplished more than you ever will." Behind the cameras, the production crew was in complete chaos. The show's executive producer was frantically gesturing to cut to commercial, but the director was refusing, knowing this was the kind of television moment that would be talked about for years. Social media was already exploding with clips and commentary, hashtags trending faster than anyone could track them. "You want to know what my recent projects have been, Jimmy?" Lopez's voice was building again, each word hitting like a hammer blow. "I just executive produced and starred in a film that's being considered for multiple awards. I launched a skincare line that sold out in minutes because women trust my judgment. I completed a world tour that broke attendance records in 12 countries. Meanwhile, what have you done lately besides sit behind this desk and try to make successful people feel small?" Kimmel's face was now completely red, a mixture of embarrassment and the dawning realization that his career might not survive this moment. I think there's been a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding here is that you thought I would sit quietly and let you humiliate me for your entertainment." Lopez cut him off, her finger now pointing directly at him. "You thought you could pick on Jennifer Lopez because I'm a woman, because I'm Latina, because you figured I'd be too polite to fight back. Well, congratulations, Jimmy. You just learned what happens when you underestimate someone who's been fighting for respect her entire career. The audience was completely silent now, save for the occasional gasp or whispered comment. Even the band members were staring in stunned disbelief at the complete evisceration happening before their eyes. This wasn't just a celebrity meltdown. This was a masterclass in how to destroy someone's credibility while maintaining your own dignity. You know what the saddest part is? Lopez continued, her voice now carrying a note of genuine disappointment that somehow hit harder than her anger had. I came here tonight to promote something I'm genuinely proud of, to talk about projects that mean something to me. Instead, I walked into an ambush designed to make me look foolish. But the only person who looks foolish right now is you. She turned to face the audience directly, her composure returning as she prepared to deliver the final blow. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what systemic disrespect looks like. This is how women in this industry are treated when we dare to be successful, when we dare to build businesses, when we dare to age with dignity and continue working. We get ambushed by insecure men who think our accomplishments are somehow threatening to their fragile egos. The audience began to murmur, some nodding in agreement, others still too shocked to process what they were witnessing. Several women in the front row were openly applauding, their faces showing a mixture of admiration and vindication. "Jimmy, I want you to understand something," Lopez said, turning back to face the now trembling host. "I didn't get where I am by accepting disrespect. I didn't build an empire by staying quiet when men tried to diminish me. And I'm certainly not going to start now on national television in front of millions of people who deserve to see what real strength looks like." Kimmel made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "Jennifer, I apologize if I came across the wrong way. That wasn't my intention at all. Maybe we could—" "Your apology means nothing," Lopez cut him off with finality. "Your intention was crystal clear from the moment I sat down. You brought me here to humiliate me, and instead, you've humiliated yourself. The difference is, I'll walk out of here with my dignity intact." She moved toward her chair, not to sit down, but to collect her purse. The simple action sent a clear message. This interview was over, and she was ending it on her terms. "You know what, America?" Lopez addressed the cameras directly, ignoring Kimmel completely now. "This is exactly why we need to support women who stand up for themselves. This is why we can't stay silent when we see disrespect disguised as entertainment. What you've witnessed tonight isn't comedy. It's bullying. And I refuse to be anyone's punching bag, no matter how big their platform is." The production crew was frantically trying to signal for a commercial break, but Lopez wasn't finished. She had one final message to deliver, and nothing was going to stop her. To the young women watching this, especially the young Latinas who might be facing their own battles in whatever industry they're in, never let anyone make you feel small. Never let anyone convince you that your success is somehow less valid because of who you are or where you come from. And never, ever let a man behind a desk tell you that your accomplishments don't matter. She slung her purse over her shoulder and looked one last time at Kimmel, who was slumped in his chair looking like he wanted to disappear. "Jimmy, I hope this teaches you something about respect, but somehow I doubt it will." Without another word, Jennifer Lopez turned and walked toward the exit, her heels clicking against the studio floor in a rhythm that sounded like a victory march. The audience erupted into spontaneous applause, not the polite, manufactured applause of a typical talk show, but genuine, thunderous appreciation for what they had just witnessed. As Lopez disappeared behind the curtain, Kimmel sat in stunned silence, his face flushed with embarrassment and the crushing realization that his career might never recover from this moment. The cameras continued rolling, capturing every second of his humiliation as the audience's applause seemed to go on forever. The incident would dominate social media for weeks, with "Ujurch Respect JLo trending worldwide and Kimmel's ratings plummeting to historic lows. Jennifer Lopez had walked into that studio as a guest, but she left as a symbol of what happens when strong women refuse to be diminished. She had turned what was meant to be her humiliation into his complete destruction, proving once and for all that underestimating Jennifer Lopez was the biggest mistake Jimmy Kimmel would ever make.